Hi everyone. Welcome to our Dundas Dashboard product overview webinar. My name is Joe Ho, and I'm a solutions architect here at Dundas. My role as a solution architect is to work directly with clients to help drive their business intelligence initiatives. This means I'm speaking with the clients to understand their business issues in order to design a solution that can help. I'm also often overseeing and even engaging in the implementation and delivery process of these solutions. This offers me a unique opportunity to engage clients in both a technical and business perspective, and I'd like to share this view with you during today's session. Today's webinar will be a walkthrough of Dundas Dashboard capabilities, and this will be both in a business context as well as from a technical perspective. At the end of the webinar, you should have a better understanding of what Dundas offers and how we can help with your business problems as well. I guess as a starting point, the first question to answer is probably, what is Dundas Dashboard? The simple answer is that it is the layer that sits between your data and your users. If you have data and people who need to see this data, but most importantly, they need to understand what the data is telling them, you may be interested in Dundas Dashboard. The platform itself is a framework for creating custom dashboards with a focus on data visualization and dashboard design. The goal for the dashboard customizations is obviously to present your people with the right information so that they can make the right decisions. Whether that's delivered in a summarized format like a chart or some kind of gauge or indicator, maybe it's process data with some inherent business logic and calculations built in, or even if it's the raw data itself presented in a table, different ways of visualizing that information to make sure your users understand what they're seeing. My goal for this webinar is to show you some of what is possible within the Dundas Dashboard framework, using examples of dashboards that Dundas has created in the past with our own platform. I also want to walk through what the platform itself looks like and how it works from more of a technical perspective. This way you have a full picture of what the end-to-end process looks like for putting something together. These will be my two focus areas during this presentation. I mentioned earlier that Dundas Dashboard is the layer between your data and your users. I guess from your perspective, why is this important? Well, if you're someone who is tasked with creating the bridge that fills that gap today, you need to deliver dashboards to your end users. This webinar is for you. If your goal is to find tools to help you better understand what is currently happening at your organization, whether that's to help improve performance in certain areas or to drive the correct behavior, then this webinar is for you as well. Or maybe you just have a business problem, and right now there's no clear solution for that problem yet. This webinar will help guide you through maybe some ideas that could lead to a solution or to a resolution for that business problem. For today's session, I'd like to start by showcasing some existing dashboards created by Dundas using the Dundas Dashboard framework. This will give you a good overview of some of the dashboards that Dundas clients typically ask our team to design and create for them, or that they've developed on their own using the platform. I want to take a look at some of what the end user experience is like with these dashboards and how the key pieces of information for your business can be presented. Knowing up front where you'd like to go and having that roadmap defined will definitely help you define how you're going to get there. So this overview in the Dundas Dashboard framework might even get you thinking about things that you'd like to do for your organization as well. We'll also be talking about what's available for mobile. So if you want to provide your users on-the-go access to your data, that is letting users view the key metrics on their tablet or even smartphone devices, this is something we're going to be covering and talking a little bit more about in more detail. So stay tuned for that. And once we've seen some of what the end user functionality is like, I'd like to walk through the more technical details of how a dashboard is designed and created within the Dundas Dashboard platform. This does get into some of the nuts and bolts behind the scenes, but I'll try to keep things pretty high level. Of course, if you're looking to dive even into more detail, so you want to see everything behind the scenes and understand what's going on, do feel free to reach out for a more focused conversation. I'll post my contact details at the end of the webinar. That way you have a place to reach me to be able to schedule for that next conversation. To wrap things up from there, I'd like to show you some extensions in dashboarding that we've encountered, either through project engagements with clients who have very specific needs, or in various business intelligence discussions or conversations. These examples will cater to cases where there's a very specific question that's being asked or a problem that's being solved, and how the dashboard can be a means to answer that question or provide the solution. This is what I'd like to cover today. To start off, let's take a look at some of the dashboard examples from our Dundas.com gallery. These are available on our website, so please do feel free to take a look at these or any of the other samples that we don't cover after the webinar as well. The one I want to start off with is a dashboard that caters to more of a real estate operation, real estate organization called Green Bean Foods. Basically, it's a grocery store chain that is tracking performance across different locations on the different metrics that they deem relevant. What you're seeing here on the screen basically is their executive summary or high-level overview dashboard that's showing you a really data-dense presentation of information in a scorecard. So this is one of the ways that visualizations can be presented to end users just from a data table type perspective. Here we've used the standard red, amber, green color scheme to indicate whether something is doing well, not doing well, or sort of in a danger zone. And these colors are going to be recurring within some of the dashboards that we've seen as a common theme, very common in dashboarding. From the particular scorecard grid that you can see here, there's also a financial summary overview in terms of trends for the same metrics we're looking at, whether it's revenue, cost, expenses, earnings, and so forth across different locations. The trend comparison for 2 periods, in this case year over year, can be specified based on user interactions. And what I mean by that is I can use the retail scorecard as a driver. I can see here Oakland 115 is not doing so well in the cost category. So if I click on that particular cell, it'll actually apply that filter on the trend below, so I can see whether this is happening consistently or if it's an anomaly that happens once in a while. On the right-hand side here, you'll see also a list of different comments. These are actually user-driven comments. People that have visited this dashboard, viewed the content, and added in a question or provides clarifications on what's actually happening here. We have VPs, regional managers that are viewing this dashboard, and they've left their comments on the dashboard itself. These are actually tagged on individual data points. So on this particular cell, you'll see a little red triangle on the top right, which has Sandra Willingham's comment, which is a question. And then Tom Benakis decided to respond to that question by going into the functionality that's built into the dashboard itself. This way, it changes the dashboard into a lot more collaborative type of delivery, and it provides users with more feedback and action plans as well on what you can do based on the data that's being presented. Your real estate on the dashboard can be quite limited depending on how much information you want to present, and that's totally up to the story of giving the user what they need. There's also interactions that can provide more information. So we have a button click that will expose a map. Right now, this geospatial visualization shows you different locations, the relative positions to one another, and again, metrics tied to what's being visible. We have different symbols of different sizes and color schemes to indicate whether something is doing well, not so well. That can also be used as a driver back to the main dashboard. So these types of features and functionality or interactions for the end user is very typical in a dashboard setting, just to make sure that the user gets to the data they need to see and understand what's going on. At the top, you'll also see a series of different tabs. These are built-in navigation to the actual dashboard itself. So you're not just seeing one particular view and that's it. You can also drill down into more detail in different perspectives. These could be different functional areas. What we're looking at here is a very specific store location. So all the metrics here are specific to a particular store and how the store performance is being tracked or being measured. So we have earnings by department. You see the different breakdowns of the departments here. We're comparing actually the store's performance against the national average. And when we're failing to hit that national average or supersede it, our color scheme again is changing to red to show you that information. I can also hover over this bar here to see the trend so that I can compare whether it's happening all the time or something that's just happening recently. My chart on the right-hand side shows me a comparison of different stores, what the target value is, and I can also use this as a driver to look at the metrics across the board for the other store locations as well. It's very interactive for the user. It's intuitive user experience, basically clicking on different elements to have the rest of the dashboard filter to that particular section. Bullet graphs on the bottom right, another visual technique to compare different metrics. So we're not just looking at one value against its target, but also seeing how that compares across the board to other metrics, other values that we're tracking, and whether something is within allowance or over the allowance values. Jumping ahead to the third final tab in this series of dashboards. Here we're looking at many different series, many different metrics. This focus is the customer satisfaction. We have a number of different categories, again displayed in a scorecard type view with indicators. And we can see how the trend of these different categories are measuring up over a period of time. So we're repeating the customer satisfaction surveys or questionnaires and capturing that information and seeing how everyone is doing. We have a meeting goal, so what is it that we're targeting and whether we're falling short or hitting those targets. We can also use your interactions to select the particular category we care about and then compare that category against the others. So we've used a technique on the chart here to fade out some of the metrics that are being displayed so they're not all visible right away. And this way you're not being inundated with too much information. You're just looking at the pieces of detail that are relevant for you. This particular dashboard is quite interactive, so it does provide the user with many different layers of detail. You can jump from high level down to store level down to overall customer experience. The next dashboard I want to take a look at is going to be a little bit different to contrast what we just viewed right now. The one that we're focusing in on next is called the Wireless Telecom Strategy Dashboard. Basically, it's actually a single page dashboard. Instead of having multiple tabs that go to different places, we're presenting all the information in one go. This one does have a lot less interactivity, but it trades that off by providing a lot of information up front. You might notice also that it's a lot more subdued in terms of the color scheme. So this particular dashboard follows a lot more data visualization best practices in terms of values like data to ink ratios. We're showing you the most important pieces of information and using just the ink or the dark areas to highlight that information. Again, we're using the same type of color schemes where reds, ambers, and greens are indicative of the measure. If it's red, generally it's not doing so well. If it's green, it's doing better. We've also foregone the middle layer, the amber layer, just to make things more clear. So we have 3 goals on this dashboard: subscriber acquisition cost, average revenue per user, and then the churn. So in terms of our metrics, goal 2, goal 3 are doing okay, but goal 1 is not doing so well. And here are all the supporting metrics that will show you what actually is happening with goal number 1. So we have our time span and what the first, second, and 2-year, 3-year type subscriptions look like, how that changes over time and across different categories. This dashboard is a lot more data dense, but it provides the information in a very readable format. It's actually designed to be something that's displayed on a big screen on a wall. We call those kiosk displays, where you're giving everyone a single version of the truth. So we're seeing this, and it can auto-update on an interval, whether that's every 10 seconds, every 5 minutes. It really depends on, behind the scenes, how fast or how quickly your data is changing. So a different type of dashboard view. Again, what we're seeing are just different examples of things that can be done, or mix and match different techniques that are used so that your story is coming through on the dashboard. These are not necessarily fixed templates that you must force your data into these models. They're just different implementations that we've done before and that we've had success with in the past. So far we've seen these dashboards presented basically in a little pop-up display from the gallery. This is a very standard portal type deployment. So your users just arrive at a URL or some kind of portal page, maybe even your existing web portal, and they can get to the dashboard and view what's actually happening from the data side. This is obviously not the only way users can get to the dashboards. The next example I want to show you is embedded in a different environment. In this case, it would be a SharePoint environment. So going to our SharePoint solution, this is a mock, or I guess a test SharePoint server that we have, demo server. That's what I want to focus in on here. Is called the HVR call center one. So instead of viewing the dashboard necessarily just in a portal, we were using a SharePoint instance in this case. We have a web part that's sitting within the SharePoint environment, and now here we have the dashboard displayed within the SharePoint page. So another mechanism for the users to be able to get to the dashboard from the interaction perspective, or from what the user can do on the dashboard. You don't lose any functionality. You have filtering capabilities that are built in. You have drill downs and information that you can present to the user from that perspective as well. Integration with SharePoint is quite painless. It is just through that web part, and the users can get to the dashboard right away. Here again on the dashboard itself, we're using big indicators, red, amber, and green, to show good, poor, fair type of display. There's also these different gauges for the call center trying to track their most important metrics. In this case, calls connected, response rates, and how often people are hanging up on these folks. The topic, or the theme for this dashboard, is a call center that has outgoing calls. For those of you who get calls during dinner time asking you for a survey or complete a survey, these are the people that are doing that. So they have some measure of what their success looks like, and whether they're hitting the targets or not are shown very clearly on the gauges and the indicators on the main dashboard. Now, if you do want to look at more detail in terms of individual call center performance, and this is a group of call centers in different regions, we can drill down from our high-level grid into more of a call center specific visual. So you can see what those measures look like, utilization, we have complaints coming in, how many people are actually picking up these calls, and what that response rate looks like across different areas. So you can see our different metrics are related to the level of detail that users find relevant for them, depending on what they want to see. From the dashboards you've seen, we've used a number of different visual techniques, from charts to gauges to indicators to maps. There's a whole library of these controls and these techniques that are available. It's just a matter of choosing the right one so that the metric that you're trying to convey to the end user is clearly understood, and you know what the next action is that will drive the behavior on the dashboard itself based on the data. At the top of this dashboard, you'll also see a toolbar that has different functionality. Exporting, printing built into the dashboard framework. So if you do want to export out from the dashboard, you have Excel options, you have PDF options, even PowerPoint, or just take a snapshot of it as an image and use it in a different document as well. So far we've seen 3 different types of performance dashboards deployed in different areas, whether it's from a perspective of users going to a portal or going to a SharePoint location. What I want to focus in on now is a little bit more on the mobile side. So let's say you have users that need to be able to see dashboards on the go. They have tablet devices they want to connect to and see their metrics. How will we go about doing that? What I have here on my next tab actually is our Mobile Explorer. So the Mobile Explorer actually provides your users who are on the go with a personalized dashboard experience based on the metrics they're interested in. The Explorer features a custom homepage, and it's composed of tiles that the user has selected from a library. And these tiles show pieces of information that are relevant to this particular user and can be customized based on the user's need. The homepage will also readjust based on your orientation in your device. So if you're looking at a portrait view or a landscape view, this will change. I can mimic that functionality by maybe changing the size of my browser. Okay, a little bit too small here. You can see things shift around a little bit, move around based on how big my browser is. I can maximize it again. It'll go back to its default view. I can also customize the order these different pieces show up in by dragging and dropping. So this would be a tap type functionality for your user on a mobile device. And they'll be able to customize to see the pieces that they want to see, or even remove elements that aren't relevant for them. You can say, well, these different items are no longer something I want to monitor on my own personalized homepage. Take those out. I can also drill down from the dashboard on the mobile side into a more detailed view. So while this is presenting me information that's relevant on the home page, maybe I want to see a little more detail. And I can drill down into a full dashboard that has more information based on the metrics that are linked to that tile. And this can be viewed on a monthly basis, cumulative basis, depending on what types of metrics you want to see. And this is fully interactive as well. I can take a look at different types of filters and apply those on my dashboard information. If I want to explore, there is an option for me to take a look at fully what's available behind the scenes. So this is the full gamut of all the dashboards that are available through the system. I can drill down into a particular dashboard and say, well, this particular dashboard is relevant for me. It looks like I already have this pinned on my home page, so there's a tile representing this dashboard there already. If I want to unpin it, I can do that, or I can also just pin it and add a new tile to my home page to represent this particular dashboard. There's a built-in export as well. I have the option to export what I'm seeing here to Excel, for example. So this is more focused towards providing your users on-the-go access to be able to see their metrics on the tablet device and get to more levels of detail based on the drill down that's available through the Mobile Explorer as well. This particular example that we're looking at is available online. So if you are interested in seeing how the Dundas platform can customize a mobile solution for you, I would encourage you to take a look at mobile.dundas.com to see what else we've done and also to go through the example that we've seen here as well. Now obviously you do want to customize your dashboard designs to cater to your audiences. You may have executives that want to see just high-level numbers and maybe the performance dashboard works well for them. Folks that are looking to see their data on their iPad or other tablet device, and we have the Mobile Explorer that will cater to that group. There's also the other group that wants to see more detailed information, to dig beyond the what's happening and get into really the why different things are happening. For those, the analytical dashboard might be the answer. So I'm just going to jump back here to our Dundas.com gallery. We do have an analytical dashboard with OLAP grid example, which I want to walk through really quickly to show you what's available. The analytical dashboard is geared towards those that are looking to do more deep dive analysis, hence the name. It's a tool for data discovery to allow the user to define what is it that they want to see, and it's all done on the fly. So as long as you have an OLAP data source, your users can choose to view different pieces of information, group the data any way they want, slice and dice it. Let's see how that works. Here we're showing you both the metric coming from a KPI from the data in grid and chart view. You can see we can drill down as well into any kind of hierarchies that are available behind the scenes, as well as look through some pre-canned reports that are relevant for everyone. So these are shared reports that users can access directly. But the real power of this analytical dashboard really is the ad hoc analysis, the data discovery portion. So to do that, I'm just going to clear this report out. Then I have the ability to go through and look through basically a list of different measures, values that are sitting in the database that I can use. I can look at sales amounts, tax amounts, product costs, whatever it is, done through drag and drop, and look at the different dimensions that are available. By date, for example, very common. Here are my measure values divided over different fiscal years. You can drill down into those fiscal years for half years and quarters as well. And if I wanted to see a further breakdown, maybe see this by geography, what countries are actually looking at purchasing these products or reselling these products, I can take a look at that information as well across these countries, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, and so on. Maybe this is too big a list. Let me edit what's there, choose a subset of these, and then be able to see those subsets, as well as drilling down into more detail within each of those hierarchies as well. So the idea here is let the user define on the fly what is it that they want to see. They can save this view, save the selection in terms of the parameters as a bookmark, basically something that they can come back to and refresh and see what the data looks like for those selections at that time. You can also export this information here that you're seeing to an Excel document, maybe do some more analysis at that point as well. So it depends on what you want to see as well. There's a slicer axis. So different ways to present the information. It's just different dashboards might cater to different audiences or folks that are interested in seeing, levels of detail that go beyond the initial performance dashboard, for example. So this is also available as something that can be presented to the user. At this point, I did want to mention that we do work with clients day-to-day, supporting them in their different dash projects in different areas, whether that's helping with defining and refining which metrics are the key metrics you want to display, or creating and designing and creating dashboards, or even styling the finished dashboards with their own branding or color schemes. For those of you looking to manage the project on your own, we also provide technical training on using the framework, as well as modules on best practices and design business. So the role that Dundas plays within your dashboard or reporting project depends on where you are in the project cycle and what resources you have available as well. So we're open to that conversation. Now that we've seen basically some example dashboards of what your end users can experience, what you can deliver to those users at the end of the day, I'd like to sort of switch gears now to move into more of the technical aspect, talk a little bit about putting the dashboard together, what the development of the dashboards that we've seen so far entails, and what kind of skill sets would be useful to have as we go through that process. Like I mentioned earlier, I do want to keep things pretty high level, and that way we're not getting into too much detail, but we're open up to that conversation as well if you want to follow up. So for the next segment, I do want to jump to a different tab. This is actually Dundas Dashboard installed on my own machine. Just refresh that real quick. Oops, let's go back here. There we go. Load it back up. So what we're seeing here basically is the Dundas Dashboard application. The application itself is built as a web interface. So basically, users that need to create new content or access and modify existing content would basically hit a URL and be able to go into the application and manage and create that content. Right now, I'm logged into an instance of Dashboard installed on my own machine. So my own machine is acting as a server that will allow users to get to the dashboard as well as host those dashboards. What I want to go through with you real quick is the actual workflow that Dundas goes through as well day to day to create and design dashboards for our clients. Basically, on the main screen here, you'll see we have 4 steps that we walk through to create and work with the dashboard. 3 of these steps do deal more heavily with the data side, so you can't really get away from data when you're working with dashboards. There's a step here to define where the data is coming from, basically high level, show dashboard or tell dashboard where your data source is, whether that's an Excel file or a database system or a SharePoint list or other data sources as well. We can consume those and have that data reflect on the dashboard itself. We have a semantic layer, basically there to do some massaging. We call this the virtual data structure. If you need to do calculations, if you need to change some of the data, you don't have access to the back end directly, this could be a way for you to go in and do that calculation and do that massaging. And finally, in the data end, there's a definition of a business metric, defining what your KPIs, your key performance indicators are, to tell dashboard what you care about measuring, monitoring, or keeping track of. So this is the data definition of the most important pieces of information coming in from your database or your data system or Excel spreadsheet. So the first 3 steps deal more heavily with the data side. We'll walk through these very quickly, high level. Before we do that, I do want to show you what the end game looks like. The last step is the creation and definition and design of the actual dashboard itself. So I'm going to start here real quick. What I'm doing is clicking on this to create a new dashboard. And this might seem very similar to you if you've used, or familiar if you've used the PowerPoint before, where you have a slide. Basically, this is our canvas. All the dashboards start off essentially like this. It's a blank canvas, nothing on it. And as a designer, as a developer, I'm going to be pulling in content from my toolbox here on the left-hand side into that canvas. I have some predefined metrics at the top here, KPIs. These are from the first 3 steps, specifically step 3. So these are predefined already. I'm just going to drag and drop one of these in and show you what that looks like on my dashboard. So it is a free-form canvas, drag and drop visual designer. You can put as many or as few controls as you would like on the canvas itself, depending on what you need to show on your dashboard. These can be as big or as small as you like, and placed anywhere you want on the canvas itself. Once you have the element on the dashboard, it's just a matter now of changing some of the properties. This is basically an attributes table that you can go through and modify to customize what your dashboard looks like. We have, for example, a series property here. I can see we have two series that represent the two different area trends that you're seeing on the screen. I can swap one of these for a bar series. So now I'm seeing bar charts, combination of visuals. Techniques are used very often like this to highlight trends or compare targets against actuals. We can also customize what the look and feel looks like, whether it's a flat color to match your branding, whether you want to be a little more adventurous and highlight different things on your dashboard through gradients, things like that. Really depends on what's the key piece of information you're trying to present and how that information needs to be presented. So the framework is built so that there's a very high level of flexibility in customizing what this looks like, so you have full control over the delivery at the end of the day. We've pulled in basically one of these KPIs, but that's not really the only thing you can drag into the canvas. There's a whole library of different charts, different types of controls to visualize your data. And you can combine these like we've done here with the bar and the line, different techniques that are used, pies, funnels, bubbles, splines, range charts, and so forth. There's also, of course, gauges, different types of single value representation, bullet graphs, linear gauge, thermometers, and other controls to enhance your dashboard, like grids, maps, traffic lights, and so on. There's also a library of general controls at the bottom for look and feel. If I wanted to put a frame around my control here, give it a title, things of that nature, I can do that. And I have a menu that I can send into the back, so I have the ability to do that very easily. If I wanted to populate this dashboard with more content, I can pull in, let's say, a bar chart, a line chart maybe. We'll separate out the ones that we have in here into two different pieces, and just drag and drop in my data definitions into those containers. So it is just a matter of populating what's on the dashboard with the content that you want to see, as much or as little as you want in terms of detail. There's a lot more we can go into in terms of the functionality at this layer. Just wanted to give you a sense of where we're working towards if we're going through the data side as well. But let me save this real quick and go back to the home screen. We will come back to that step, but I do want to show you the full picture before we do any more customization for the dashboard itself. But keep in mind we're working in the new dashboard here. I guess I should rename that. It's webinar dashboard. Now, before we wrap up on the dashboard end, we do want to see very quickly how we get from data to dashboard. So the first three steps are very important in terms of the workflow. I'm going to connect to a database behind the scenes to let me see what that data looks like. There are lots of different sources of data we can use. It's not just databases, but also Excel files, SharePoint lists, different types of sources, whether those are relational or cubes. I'm going to connect real quick to my own server. That's just my machine, a user that I have on that machine, and a database sample that I have running, which will give me access to some structures that have data inside. So basically, dashboard is just going in and looking at what's available so we know how to retrieve it. We can also rename this connector to webinar connector. And that's really the first step. Quite simple, opening up a path between the application itself and your data source. Step two, defining what we call the virtual data structure. If you have basically data that you need to massage or do calculations on, this is the way to do it. We have a webinar connector. We have a series of database structures from my data. If I wanted to pull in, let's say, for example, I don't know, revenue by product by month. This is a table that basically gives me some kind of number, some kind of product information, and a timestamp. So common data in terms of transactions. Here's what it's going to look like. We have our timestamp. we have our revenue value, we have some product identifier. In this case, they're identified by IDs, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also do calculations, add in new values, whether those are done through a mathematic type perspective or otherwise, that's up to you. We can, for example, add in something that changes what my value looks like, and we call this a custom value. So we have a new value here that we can use, or we can use the one that's actually saved with the data. All we're doing is defining basically what the data is going to look like coming in. Let me save this real quick, and you can see it show up on my new virtual table, which I will rename like the other one. VT for virtual table. And that's really step 2. As many of these virtual structures as you need. If you have all your data sitting in one table, maybe you just have one of these that will map to multiple metrics. And the metrics I'm talking about is the third step in this process, defining what we call the business metric or KPI, key performance indicator. It is done through a wizard interface, so I can go through, create my KPI, select my webinar KPI, or webinar, VT, which we just defined. It'll ask us some questions on what we want to see. What is the measure? What is the value you want to keep track of? Is that a sum total? Is that an average? You can decide how to perform those calculations. You can also look at a sum total count of the number of transactions that you have. Count them up and see how many there are. Generally, we want to see data either broken down by a time frame, so a trend, or by a product, by a type of category, whether that's a location, a department, a product type, things like that. And that's really the KPI definition. Quite a simple one in this case, looking at sales revenue over time, whether that's an average value or a sum total, cumulative, basically, value, that's up to you. You can also define what your state bands are that drive those red, amber, and green calculations as well. All that is available at this layer for the business logic. But what we're going to represent on our dashboard now is going to be this revenue value or the custom value over a time span, maybe even have some filtering on the type of products, so we're limiting on the information that's being displayed. Essentially, connect to your data, do some calculations and massaging on your data. From that data itself, define what is the most important pieces you want to keep track of, and then using those metrics, those KPIs, populate your dashboard and design it so that the user can see that information. So going full circle now back to the dashboard itself, our new KPI, which I neglected to rename, of course, is available there. Drag and drop it in, and we have our information populated right off the bat. And there's our trend of our average revenue over time. We can also pull in same KPI again to the chart. It'll generate another series. Maybe we'll just swap this with the other piece of data that we have. Instead of looking at revenue, let's go to custom value. So we have a set of green bars, a set of blue bars. This is where swapping the metric might be quite useful. Let's make one of these a line. Make one of these maybe dots or points. And now we have a different type of visualization. So lots of different techniques that we can use to show this information. It's just a matter of what makes the most sense and how to present that information that lets the user understand it the best. The look and feel, I know, is not the greatest. I'm not a very good designer myself, but built into the framework itself is also a set of themes. So these will apply across the board to your dashboard so that you have a common branding, common look and feel. And you can also create your own custom themes as well. Dundas also does a lot of work with clients on branding and styling their dashboard. So if you're looking at creating your own dashboard and maybe you don't have resources like designers in-house to do the branding, do the backgrounds, the banners, and so forth, then that's good to do that for you as well. So here we have the Athens one. The Buenos Aires one looks pretty good as well. Just different ways to get into the styling side. Beyond this, there's also, in terms of flexibility, a scripting engine behind the scenes. So this gets really into more of the technical aspect. just want to show you real quick that it's there. What it does basically is it allows you to create your own custom C# code and have the user execute this code through some kind of trigger, whether that's a mouse click, a mouse hover, some kind of data changing in the background. I'm going to set up a pop-up through a wizard. This is going to show me another dashboard altogether. So I'll have a set of existing dashboards here. We haven't seen this executive one yet before, but what we've done through that pop-up wizard essentially is allows me to generate a click. It'll pop up a dashboard without having set the parameters on the size, but you see this pop-up happens because I clicked on a bar on my chart. What's actually happening behind the scenes on that bar chart is this code is being executed. And there is a full library here that you can use to make things happen. So if I want to go into show you a message, for example, I can do that. I can also show or hide different things on my dashboard. Area chart 1, for example, has many different properties, classes that you can modify. One of these is the visibility toggle. So my click, now that I've made that change in the code, it's going to do something completely different than what it did before. Show you a pop-up and hide the area chart, which in this case is itself. You just save what we've done. So lots of different ways to take advantage of all the different pieces that are available within the dashboard framework. Again, flexibility is what we're going after so that you have the ability to really control what the output is at the end of the day. At this point, we've walked through the steps in the Dundas Dashboard development process. Let's go back to the home screen real quick. Using the tools that we've seen from this webinar, I'd like to present some ideas of what Dundas has done to extend upon the framework, to provide basically different examples of visualization techniques or interactions to end users to cover different use cases. Keep in mind that what I'm going to show you is basically just a subset of things that we've done. And if you're interested in seeing more of these interesting ideas and options, we do have additional webinars as well on our website that go into some of these as well. So I'm going to open up a different tab here. Excuse me for jumping around. This is what we call our samples framework. It's basically a framework of examples contributed to by members of different teams here at Dundas. We have our BI consultants, we have our solution architects, also our support team. The different examples in here basically come from either project engagement, discussions with clients, even more, I guess, ad hoc research in terms of up-and-coming visualization techniques or ways to show information from recent discussions. The ones I want to show you today circle around some pretty standard use cases that we might encounter day to day, or even in a situation right now that you're dealing with at your organization. The first one I want to show is called the run chart. So this is quite simple in concept, but I find it's very useful and can be very easily extended to cover other scenarios as well. What you're seeing as the baseline for the run chart is some set of data that varies over time. Everyone has transaction data that's time-stamped. We're just seeing the peaks and valleys of what this data looks like. Now, very often, users would ask, I want to know what the average value is over the span. And you could have that display on the dashboard by default, which is just a measure that comes up whenever they open the dashboard. Perfectly fine. But what if they want to see, well, I want to know what the average value is over a peak or over a trough or a valley? How do you anticipate that need and be able to present that right off the bat? What we've done here is provided the user with an interaction that they can select a span over anywhere they want actually on the dashboard, and it will give you the average value of that span. So if I'm interested in the trough here, select that span, you'll see we have 59.3 or 0.03, sorry, as the run average, and we'll also give you the pre-run and the post-run. So the value of the average before it and the value of the average after it. And this can be any zone or any region on the dashboard. Sometimes you might not have enough space to see the actual text value because it will overlap with the existing series. Just hover over that particular line, you'll see what the value is as well. That line can be made thicker, it can be made dashed, just a matter of what makes the most sense for your users. Does it have to be an average value? No, absolutely not. It could be a cumulative total. It could be some other calculation. But here we're just using average as an example. To the run lines, you're back to your standard chart. So very simple concept of giving users the ability to define some measure on the dashboard that they have, but then dynamic enough to be able to cater to different cases as well. The next piece I want to cover, we go back to the home screen of this framework, is a visualization that deals more with a map and also shows sort of a real-time update of what your data could look like on a big screen on a wall. Actually, it's right here, the airline real-time map. Let me open this up. I do want to preface showing this example with the fact that the data itself is mock data, so it's not real data that you're seeing, and you'll see why in a minute. Basically, we have a map showing you different points. In this case, the points are represented by symbols of planes, and the data behind the scenes is just sample data that's changing every second, and the dashboard is refreshing every second to reflect the new position of these planes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a position change. It could be a value change, so maybe the bubbles are growing in size, changing in color. Depends on what you're trying to measure. In actuality, these planes are flying really, really fast based on what we can do today in actual aircraft flight. But you can see here we have a data table that's showing you the actual data, and then the changes in the data itself reflected on a map visualization. We can zoom in as well on the map if you want. We've disabled this on this particular map itself. But different ways to present information. This could be quite interesting depending on what you want to see. This could be, again, on a big screen on a wall. If it's not a map, it could be a set of gauges showing you current performance. It could be a table showing you the line items of the upcoming tasks, outstanding items, things like that. But another interesting visualization that we've used to highlight and show examples for the map as well as the real-time updates. I do want to go over one more example before we wrap up. This one is called the slideshow viewer. So relating back again to big screen on a wall, one version of the truth, sometimes having just one view just isn't enough. You want to be able to crunch or smash everything into one particular page, but then your users are getting confused because you're showing too many metrics. Why not have different dashboards cycle through on a timer? This one we're looking at in assembly plans. We have different metrics in bullet graphs as well as a diagram showing you real-time what stations are up, what stations are down, and then as it cycles, it'll show you a next page or a next metric that's related to that, but here we're now looking at individual lines, the performance currently, the performance against some benchmark, whether that's last year or yesterday or the target that we have. So it'll keep cycling through these two dashboards in this case. Maybe yours are 3, 4, 5 different views that you need to cycle through. No problem. As many as you need, it's just a matter of presenting the information in the right way, and then users can see just by tilting their head up at the big screen and see what's going on. And we have those here at Dundas as well on our big screen showing different types of performance metrics. So that does bring us near the close of our webinar today. Just to quickly recap, I'm going to pull up our agenda again. So we've walked through some of the finished dashboard examples together, seeing different visualization techniques and interactions to help the end user understand what they're seeing. We've also seen how this information can go through an online web page, to a SharePoint portal, or even a mobile device using our Mobile Explorer. We ventured through the dashboard design phase, so looked at a little bit on the creation process within the dashboard, seeing the application as a developer would. I also presented some ideas in the extended samples section around visualization techniques that we've used in the past during engagements with clients or helping users with their business intelligence projects or initiatives and goals. I understand that there's a fair bit of information here to digest. If you do have questions that weren't answered during the course of the webinar, either by me or the moderators, please feel free to reach out. I know I've been talking about giving you guys my contact information throughout the entire webinar, so here it is. I put it up on the screen. Please do not hesitate to contact us and reach out for additional discussions, whether that's around more on the technical side about some of the workflow and how Dashboard works, or even on the business side, how Dundas can help with your either business intelligence dashboard projects, or even if you have a problem that you'd like to talk about. So thank you all for attending the webinar today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.